All right. What am I even supposed to say? What do I say to an audience that already knows that they hate me, even though they don't know me? God. Hi everybody. My name is Big Red. They call me that because, well, the big comes from something that I'm not really supposed to talk about. And the red, you'd be like, oh, you're not Big Red. Your hair's not red. Listen, I just had to dye it because I wanted to. I don't know. I just needed to change the scenery. Okay? It was months ago. People were picking on me because of my pale complexion and red skin, so I just wanted to do something different. And I decided I needed to get this out because the harassment campaign against me has gone too hard and too far. And sorry, this is the only time that I could get away to do anything. My body is destroyed from the people who have been harassing me, so I'm taking a little sauna right now in the basement of my California bar known as the Emergency Vet Clinic. If you do know me already, it's because you've heard lies and slander about me from a man named Dan Henschel, who is an online entertainer here on YouTube. And ever since he made some videos talking about my bar and my conduct, most of which is not true, I have been. It's just been tough. Okay? So, to tell you about me, I am the son of a first generation immigrant. My dad was from Russia, and he was a loan shark. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I know that's not. He did what he had to do. He barely spoke any English, but also he was mostly a drunkard and he could hardly speak Russian too. So it was hard talking with them at times. And the way he made his money was not good. He made lives worse everywhere he went. And it was tragic. I hated him for that. And when he died, I realized I had to undo all the damage that he did. So the way that he would treat people was like that they were animals. And that's something he would always say. He was a big man. Like, he was like big Otets Red. He would have a kielbasa and a beer with every meal. No matter what, even if it was coffee in the morning. Kielbasa, beer, coffee. And he'd always compare the people that he was working with as animals. And the way that he could hardly talk with people. Like, if you were a loan shark, you would probably understand. The people you're interacting with, they don't really think like people. So not being able to speak clearly is kind of an advantage that he had. And he did very well. He did make a good chunk of money. And I don't know, I guess I'd never thought of people as animals. But when he finally died and he left his money, I guess I came back to terms with it. And I was like, I guess we all are animals. And instead of hurting them and culling them and squeezing them for everything they have, I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to help them. So that's why I spent the money on a boat that I was going to use to help immigrants cross across from Mexico and Puerto Rico. Because this was around, he died in 2017, right? So this was during the first Trump crisis. And I wanted to give back to the people who needed me the most. Well, the government seized my ship pretty fast, and that was a $55,000 boat. So I was like, okay. I'm still pending a lawsuit on that, but I don't have much faith in the justice system, especially after the way the police have ignored my recent calls. They're not going to fix a big piece of my property being taken from me. Unfortunately, that left me with very little money, but it left me with enough to get a small corner bar that I named the Emergency Animal Clinic, the Emergency Vet Clinic. And business isn't great, I'll be honest. But the one thing that we did have that really pulled people in was my dad, when he was in between busting kneecaps and stuff, he didn't really have a penchant for the violent side of being a loan shark. He preferred to negotiate. Kind of like if you have a gambling addiction, people will vastly underestimate the worth of their possessions that they already own just for one more roll or one more loan, whatever. So one of the things he got from this old Iranian man who was also struggling as a first generation American was this vintage pool table. It was definitely the prized possession of my dad once he got it. And I liked playing with it too every time that I could. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. We had to polish it every other week. We had to make sure that the felt was perfectly lined. The pockets, you could not touch them with your hands. You had to use a special glove. And when he died, I decided to take it for myself out of the will. And it was lucky that I did, because it was about the only thing that really drove people to the bar. And when I say that, what I really mean is that it was the only way that I was able to afford the bar. You see, this pool table was an East Indian wood, tournament pockets. Oh, what was the company that made it? I don't know. It was a vintage 1930s table, though. The valuation of it's about $75,000. But I did kind of lie on a few things, and realistically, I could probably flip it for $10,000 to $20,000. And I used it as collateral for my mortgage that I used for my business, where I sleep here, I do laundry here, I do everything here. Downstairs, where I am. This is where I live. So, anyway, obviously this pool table, if you've seen Dan's video, you know this pool table is kind of important to the story and the trouble that he caused, that he lied about. Thanksgiving was rough for me. My girlfriend and I split up. It was around the Thanksgiving turkey time when she mentioned that Miley Cyrus had gotten engaged to, I don't know, some fucker. Mad Max or something is his name. Some guy who wasn't me. And that really upset me, because one of the reasons that I decided to stay in LA was because I wanted a shot at, and not like serious, it's not like I was stalking her, I was not like I was doing anything like that. I was mostly just like, oh, I'm walking around the street and maybe I'll meet a celebrity that I'm attracted to, like Miley Cyrus. And I don't know, like that just broke me, you know? It's like the first time that you, in your 30s, when your knee cracks and you're like, oh, I guess I never will get to be a professional baseball player anymore. You know, it's not like it was something you were pursuing anyway, but it really sucks, and I hate that for myself, that I didn't get to do that. And so the whole family kind of goaded in, and they were talking about their their celebrity crushes, and most people understood because most of my family is actually pretty reasonable and level-headed. After my dad died, and it kind of mellowed everybody out. And so we were talking about our celebrity crushes, and obviously Miley Cyrus is probably one of my top three. Like back when she was like young and like fuckable. These days, like I don't think she looks that good. But either way, like, it's still Miley Cyrus, right? And my girlfriend, she said that she wanted to be with Jason Momoa. And that, like, she knew that was going to piss me off because we fight all the time back and forth on how insecure I am about my own immaturity. And I feel like she picked a big, responsible, older, muscled up man just because she knew that was the foil to me. And that made me mad. That made me really upset. And she's like, it's not any different than you picking a girl that's younger and prettier than me. And it's like, it is though, because you can't ever be younger and prettier than you are now. But there's this expectation that I'm supposed to magically mature and become better and stronger and more responsible as I get older. So it really dampened thing, and then at the end of the night, she's like, I don't think we can do this anymore. It's over. And she wouldn't listen to anything else that I had to say about that. So I spent the night with my parents, and she drove back to LA that night, but I still spent the night in Pasadena. And I drove back home to my shitty, underperforming bar. And the second that I walk in, I can smell, it smelled like a raccoon got in there or something. And then my best employee, who was house sitting for me, I think he called him the Big Lebowski. He was there. And he's like, you're not going to believe this. And I could already tell that it just was not going to be my day. And I look and I see my pool table, and it's just completely ruined. And I didn't know what to think. I was like, well, what happened? Because if anybody finds out that this pool table is ruined, one, they're not going to come here, but two, I might lose the collateral for this business. I'm not really making enough money to keep myself afloat. Ironically enough, I might have to go to a loan shark for this. And on further inspection, he shows me all the scuffs and all the damage and all the dog shit and piss and drool that's all over my felt. And I'm like, okay, like, this actually isn't terrible. We could close down for a couple of days. We might be able to fix this. Because I know a guy in the upholstery business who owes me a favor, who knew my dad. But then I look underneath, and I see that it bled through the felt. And that's not good, because underneath the felt is where I have the certificate of authenticity. And without that, it's basically worthless. It's, they make thousands of counterfeits of these because they're such a high premium item. And it's not like it's something that you care about anyway. Like, unless you're Gandhi or one of those trick shot guys, you're not going to tell the difference between a $100 pool table and a $50,000 pool table. You're just not. So hacks would make counterfeits of these all the time. That's why I made sure that I kept the certificate of authenticity. And that's how my dad also made sure that, it was worth it. And that's why he cared about it so much. So I'm like, who the fuck did this? And he pulled up the camera and he's like, okay. It was this bald guy with no eyelashes, and his skinny cousin or wife or sister or something. And I'm like, okay. So Now I had to spend $250 to hire a PI. Luckily, my PI guy is really good. He found him in like 3 hours. That's about the best part of this story, is that I do have good connections. I have good friends. We found him. I can't afford lawyers or anything. I have Dan. I have Dan, my Dan, and Jeff. They're kind of losers. They're gym bros. They hang out all the time. They pretty much just smoke weed and lift weights all day long. And they just pick up odd jobs, and they're happy. I give them free beers, and they do most of my cleaning and shit. But I give them Dan's name. I was like, go find him, confirm, and if you can confirm his identity, give him this letter. So I'm like, I can't cover this. I have to have somebody pay for it. And so in the meantime, I'm kind of researching him, and it turns out he is this big internet personality. I was like, okay. So I watched some of his videos, and honestly, I don't get them. They're not for me. No, there were some cool things that I saw. It's like he was like Santa Claus, but he was blue. It's like, you'll shoot your blue out. You'll shoot your blue out. That was funny. That was genuinely good. But there was so many that he's like just telling these crazy stories. And now, like meeting him in person, I don't think most of them are true. I think some of them are real. And I can definitely tell you he's a sociopath after interacting with him for 5 fucking minutes. But anyway, so luckily they find him. They find his address because it's publicly available online. Doesn't matter if you use Aura or not, or any of these YouTube scams, your data's still out there. They're gonna find you. I can go to the public court records and find him. But anyway, I find Dan, I serve him the papers, and he comes in about 3 hours later, and he's mad. And just from watching the cameras and the way that there was no audio, but I could tell from the way that he was shoving my employee and talking, like trying to be a big boy in front of his sister, cousin, whatever. And the way that he kind of manhandled that dog, even though he doesn't have much muscle, you could tell he was operating on pure spite. So this is an unpleasant guy. I really don't want to interact with him. But I'm a man of my word. I'm trying to do a man-to-man thing to prove that there's nothing to be scared of. He's not going to hurt me. I bring him in my office one-on-one, and I explain the damages to him. I explain that there's dog liquids, and I say piss and shit. He softens his language for his YouTube, I guess, probably because he's trying to make money, which makes sense. But I realized he probably has a net worth of a couple $100,000, and he made a big mistake, and he needs to fix this. And he just fights it. He's like, I'm not paying it. I was like, well, the truth is I was pretty much bluffing. I didn't want to go to court either, because my debts would probably come up in discovery. And I watched the Carl Jobst and Billy Mitchell trial lately, and it's true. It's the only people who win in a lawsuit are the lawyers. And I'm not about to make some fat cat, scum of the earth, more money. I just need to get my life whole. Dan needs to make me whole. So Dan's then kind of flirting with this idea of, well, is there something else that we can do? And keep in mind, I was lonely, and I was just missing my girlfriend, and then my whole world just kind of collapsed in the last 16 hours. So, and he's giving me he's beckoning. I was like, well, there there might be something you could do. And I kind of flirtatiously said, I might be able to show you why they call me Big Red. And also, it's not really just a penis. It's because I used to be very, very fat. Okay, I used to be. I've lost a lot of weight now, and I know I'm still fat. He called me a fat ass in one of his recent videos, and that was just like so not cool. I've been working through some eating disorders, and I feel like I'm at a pretty healthy weight now, and I'm still working on it. But such an asshole. But he then starts making suggestively sexual noises in my office during working hours when I have patrons in the bar. And I'm like, you get the fuck out of here. And it had nothing to do with me being a closeted homosexual. For one, I was not actually proposing that we be intimate in that way. I actually thought, like I said, I already scoped out his online presence. I thought maybe he could do some good for me. Instead of just trashing my bar online, I thought maybe he could actually bring some people there. Because we'd actually had 1 or 2 customers come in that day. It's like, oh, hey, I just heard about this from some YouTuber. It's like, oh, yeah, funny name. It's like, yeah. And then I explained the name to them. But people in the past have called me predatory, or that I'm suggestive, or that I make people in compromising situations do things, and that is just not true. I am not like my father in that way. And so it bugged me. It made me blow up in a way that it shouldn't have, right? But yeah, I probably would have, honestly, if he was good. Maybe I would have just said, fuck it.